As our final segment, we're going to take a deep dive into Salesforce and how the company has been transforming the enterprise and customer experience in this new Gen AI era. And with me today, please welcome Juan Perez.
Hello.
He is the Executive Vice President and the Chief Information Officer at Salesforce.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
For those of you that don't know, though, he has a storied 3-decade-plus career from UPS, and you actually went into retirement before being lured back by a cloud company. But the timing of it is what really gets me, because you joined before the ChatGPT kind of boom really took the world by storm. Was the job that you agreed to take the job that it eventually became?
My goodness. What a great question. First of all, it's great to see you all. Certainly commend you for being part of these events. It's important that all of us in the industry can continue to learn from one another, especially as we see this next generation of technologies evolving. And there's no better way of learning than to actually exchange experiences and some of the things that we are all collectively learning. But you're absolutely right. When I joined Salesforce, I was retired for 1 day from UPS. So it was Friday. And then the next week on Monday, I was working for Salesforce. And the mission at the time was really interesting. Salesforce, being a technology company that had been around for 25 years, really has these great aspirations to continue to grow, get to be a really large organization, and realized that its IT shop was not really in a position to scale to support the company's growth. And that's why they actually recruited me, and they wanted me to be part of their company. Now you move forward 2 years after that point, and my goodness, we've done that, and check mark, it's good. But now the whole mission for the company has transitioned into supporting the AI enterprise. And it's really interesting. Right before this meeting, I was in my one-on-one with Mark Benioff, and it's been one of the most interesting experiences ever.
Is it eval season for you guys too?
Well, you know, to work for a founder is quite unique, and to work for a founder like Mark, who's constantly reimagining the future and thinking about where not only our company, but the industry is going, is fascinating. So last year, I was in a meeting with him. I was sitting next to him, and he wrote in my book that my title, this is before the CAIO title became now a thing. He said, Juan, you're no longer the CIO. You're the Chief AI Officer for the company. So I took that seriously. It was an indication that the company was transitioning into something new. Today, he changed my title again. By the way, all these changes in title don't come with any more pay. I will tell you that much. I should ask him that one of these days. But today, the new title was, Juan, you no longer are the CIO nor the CAIO. Now you're the CAO. And I said, what do you mean, Mark? He says, well, now you're the Chief Agent Officer. And it really got me thinking, because that's where he sees things happening, right? Last year, it was all about AI. Now it's all about how do you take AI and put it in the context of agents that are working side by side with people and are helping people get better results.
How has that changed your day-to-day when it comes to picking the technology that you guys use internally, whether it's generative AI or otherwise? But I'm wondering if you can kind of offer up some examples of how this new era has kind of changed the game for your own role.
Yeah. Well, I carry an obligation that not all of you here carry, and that is that priority number one is to be Salesforce on Salesforce, Jackie. So before I consider any technologies in for the enterprise, my first obligation is to actually consider Salesforce technology. And it's not until I get to a point where the solution that the business requires is just not in a position to be met by Salesforce technology, those requirements that are so critical to the business, that I go with something else. So Salesforce and Salesforce first, especially as it relates now to Gen AI, all things related to sales, service, commerce, marketing, the entire CRM space, even analytics, and certainly now also integration with some of the tools that we support as a company. My first pass is to make sure that we use those technologies in the company and that we are truly customer zero. What that actually means is that before you see any technologies from Salesforce, that my group is actually working on them, using them, experimenting with them, and providing feedback to the product teams. And then after that, it's everything else. So we have many other technologies in the business. We support those technologies fully, and of course, we need to continue to maintain both environments well.
Talk to me about what it's like vetting those, because there's a lot of companies out there now that label themselves AI, but they're really not. And I'm curious what you've seen in the market amid all this enthusiasm when they're out pitching you, this is why you should, incorporate our tech into your company.
It really is a great question, and I think it's something that we all need to think about. When I used to work for UPS, as Jackie said, I was with UPS for 32 years of my career. And
you were also a delivery man.
I was a delivery man in Beverly Hills, California. 90210 was my postal code. Best Christmas I've ever had, too, by the way. I think about how the company over the years changed. Being a package delivery company, then it became a supply chain company, then it became a logistics company, and then it became a technology company. And I would argue that everyone in this room today, if someone asks you, okay, tell me about your business, whatever business you may be in, you probably would also think that you're a technology company. I think in time we're going to be in the same boat when it comes to AI. I really believe that it's going to come to a point where, yeah, we're technology companies, but we're also AI companies. And we are AI companies not because we think of AI as a strategy, but because AI is just so embedded into everything we do. It's the way that we run the business. And I think it's just a matter of time that that's the way that we will be operating our companies. And Jackie, I use this analogy. I think about this often now. Those of you who have been in IT for a long time, you remember when mobile phones became a thing in business. And we started thinking, oh my goodness, we got to be mobile first. So whatever technology we're going to deploy, we got to make it mobile first. And we started shifting in that direction, and that's the way we started building technology. Then cloud comes along, and we start thinking about, we got to be cloud first. And we started building, designing, architecting solutions as cloud-first companies. We don't really talk anymore about being mobile first, cloud first. It's just the way we do stuff today, the way that we build technology today. I think it's going to be the same thing with Gen AI specifically. We think about today as how do we become a Gen AI first company? But eventually, it's going to be just another great set of solutions that will be so embedded into what we do every day that that's the way that we operate.
What are some challenges that you've hit along the way in the last, year and a half or so that you've been at the company, or 2 years now, that you perhaps weren't expecting before, AI really became the focus of a lot of companies out there?
I agree. I think and most of you probably would agree with these. We had pushed data strategies for a long, long time. I remember, even in my previous role, bringing in a team together, bringing third parties to the company, really crafting a data strategy that would actually help us support the needs of the business in the future. And most times, those initiatives were supported by me as the CIO, but when we were really at the point where we needed to make significant investments, we couldn't get those initiatives past the finish line. In many cases, my business partners would not even comprehend, why are we talking about a data strategy? I still get my report every morning. It seems to be okay. But the mindset is shifting, and I've seen that now over the last several months, where now data is becoming much more important. And it's becoming a more regular part of the conversation with our business partners, where they now understand the need for having good data that ultimately can generate better results from AI. You see, because the whole notion of Gen AI, when you use ChatGPT and you get a cool response, hey, yeah, that's really great. But when you now apply Gen AI solutions in the business and you start seeing that the outputs are not that great, that you have hallucinations, remember all the talk we had about that, when you see toxicity in your results, when there's no audit trail of any kind, you start losing trust in what comes out of these technologies. Jackie, what I have seen now is that as a result of all of that, and the fact that the technology still has significant benefits, people are paying more attention to data. So it's been great for me to see how now in the conversation around Gen AI, it's not just simply, hey, we need Gen AI to run this part of the business or that part of the business, but it's also now becoming a data discussion. Do we have the right data? Is the data accessible? Is that data in a way that can actually support what we want to do with Gen AI? Are we bringing all the data from all these sources of trapped data Are we bringing all that data together so that we can ultimately generate better results out of Gen AI? So to me, it's been a good journey to see how Gen AI has changed our view of data in the enterprise.
I mean, we talk a lot about productivity and ROI, but in order to even get there, you need to invest in it, and that takes money and resources. And here's a fun little story about Juan for you guys. When he was at UPS, he had a model for monitoring the tire pressure as a means to save costs. And I just find that granular little piece of data, a data point that informed the way you were thinking about your budget. And what's kind of the equivalent here, you know, at Salesforce for you?
It's a great question. So first of all, what I learned from that experience at UPS, you know, UPS is a company that measures everything. And when we opened the doors to telematics and capturing an enormous amount of data as to what happens in a driver's day, those drivers who you see making deliveries day in and day out, you know, we opened the door to significant improvements in a number of things. Safety, for example, making sure that you monitored whether the drivers were wearing their seatbelts or not, all the way to miles. You know, I used to tell the story all the time. I don't say it anymore because I'm not with UPS anymore. But at the time when I was there, you know, saving 1 mile per day for all the drivers in the U.S. across, you know, a full year represented savings in excess of $70 million a year. So that gives you this idea that details matter. And when you actually, in big companies and medium companies and in small companies, when you aggregate the benefits of tackling all these small things, they can actually amount to significant benefits, significant value. To your question, I think it's going to be the same thing with Gen AI. You know, I was listening to the panelists before me, and you know, their points were right on. I think we are all at different stages in being able to see the true, real value of Gen AI. We have all these pilots that are active today. We are starting to see some rays of light across all these different efforts that are telling you that this technology has huge, huge potential. But in terms of actually bringing all that and putting it into the P&L, we're not there yet. It will come. But it's important to pay attention to the details, how you manage the data. I heard one of the panelists, I certainly agree with her, prioritizing the types of initiatives that matter most to the business, the ones that are going to have the most impact, making investments in those. Also having enough flexibility to adjust to, you know, changes in these technologies that are happening so rapidly. I see that in my company. I'm customer zero, remember that. But the work that we were doing with co-pilots 3-4 months ago is now completely changing into now becoming an agent company. So co-pilots are transitioning into agents, and guess what? I'm customer zero, so I got to be in a position to do all this. And I got to do it in a way where it's cost effective, it's well done, and ultimately doesn't put the organization at high risk. So at the end of the day, I think understanding how to invest, understanding how you manage your investments for the areas that will matter most to the company in the long run, and making sure that when you find those areas where the value is truly there, that you double down, that's the approach to me. One thing I will tell you all, AI is not going to be free. I used to say this all the time, shipping is not free. When you see all these ads, hey, shipping is free. No, wait a second. Shipping is not free. I will give you my ad now. AI is not free. AI is going to cost some money, and I think it's important that we as technologists think about the implication of the decisions that we make when it comes to AI on cost, and certainly on the overall benefit cost analysis that we all still need to do.
I mean, if there's anything that we saw from recent earnings reports, and you know, we seem to be reaching a part in the AI hype cycle where investors are expecting a little bit more and they want to see some results. And you guys are one of the most established tech companies out there. And I'm curious how you think about kind of this stage, the balance between incorporating new technologies at speed, at scale, while not overspending. Where would you say you are in that phase? Like, are you kind of, you know, curtailing kind of the costs at this point? Are you still kind of charging ahead when it comes to, you know, rolling things out or, you know, working with new vendors? Kind of where are you in that?
You know, For the first time, I've been a CIO for almost 10 years now, and you know, I've always been very disciplined about how we make investments in technology. I never really felt that we should be spending money on technology just for technology's sake. Never did. I think that the technology investments need to be closely connected to the company's strategy, to the company's objectives, and that should dictate how you make investments in technology. But for the first time in those 10 years, I saw this period of time in which we ignored all that. And we started just putting stuff out there without any real business cases, without any real assessment as to, you know, how this was going to ultimately create and generate value for the company, with good ideas and good intentions, but no clarity in that. I think that that was okay for the beginning, but now it's going to become more of a, okay, now we understand the data piece better. We understand how to avoid bad AI. We have, in the case of my company, we have spent an enormous amount of money, time, and effort in building a trust layer in our AI solutions so that ultimately when you buy from Salesforce, you're actually operating from a place of trust. Your data is not going to be shared with anyone. Your data is your data. We'll make sure that you have audit trails, that you can manage and control that data. So, you know, we are at that stage now. And by the way, the solutions are evolving much more rapidly. We're working on now agents for service and agents for sales, where we see significant opportunities for improvement in those operations. So now I think it's time to really identify, it was said in the previous panel as well, you know, what are the areas in which we really see the most benefit? What specific processes can be transformed by the use of this technology? And go back in a way, not entirely, but in a way, to the things that we've known how to do so well in IT, which is to understand the technology, know what it takes to deploy the technology, quantify the value of technology, quantify the cost of implementing that technology, and start driving some return on investment.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the conversations you have with Mark, because I've heard that there can be a bit of a dissonance between a CIO and a CEO, and what a CEO thinks is feasible versus what a CIO knows is actually realistic. And I'm curious what, you know, what that looks like within Salesforce. Kind of, you know, take us back to when people were really excited about AI. Where did you have to kind of rein him in, and where are we now?
There's no reining Mark in. That's a great question.
What advice would you have for the crowd? Because I'm sure this relationship exists at other places too.
Absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, Mark is a reasonable business guy. He's going to push the boundaries. And I will tell you, in all these years doing this type of work, I've never seen a leader like him who truly pushes the boundaries as to where the company should go, where their technology should go, and how the technology should create value for our customers. I've never seen anyone like him. But at the same time, you know, Mark recognizes that there will be certain things that Salesforce should not be into, that we should respect, that that's not going to be our space. It's not always easy to get him there, but at the end, he will recognize that. But in those areas where we need to be really good, and that's my suggestion to you, that when you sit down with your CEOs and you talk about Gen AI, first of all, I don't talk about Gen AI as a strategy, quite frankly. With him, I talk about Gen AI as a journey. It's a technology that is going to continue to evolve. It's a technology that's going to continue to advance. And like I said before, it will be pervasive in the way that we do business, and it will be just another technology that we all collectively in our field support, manage, deploy, and effectively support the business with. Right now, I do think, and we have the obligation to take a little bit of more risk where it's possible. I think we have the obligation to articulate that risk, but also understand how to mitigate it in case it becomes real. That discussion needs to happen with the CEO. I think we also need to be very open with our CEOs in, let's call it this way, educating our CEOs in what is real and what is not. You know, in many cases, people reading articles, hearing from other CEOs, the messages get exaggerated as to what Gen AI can actually do. And I think we have the responsibility to be the chief educators also when it comes to Gen AI and being able to be good descriptors of what's right and what is wrong. And then lastly, I think we also, as we work with our CEOs, need to make sure that we keep guiding our CEOs to press on the business in general to focus on those things that matter most and not get distracted. As IT professionals, you know, not only do we have to work on Gen AI, but we got a million other projects that need to get done. We got technical debt that needs to be addressed. We have security that needs to be prioritized. We have talent that we need to manage. So all those things need to be done well in the balance of what these new technologies will actually accomplish for the companies in the long run.
I wish we had more time, but that's all we have today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all.